Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm here with my best books of 2017. Or maybe I should call it my favorite books of 2017 because all of these are books that I read in 2017. Not all of them were released in 2017. So they're my favorite books that I read last year. These are in no particular order. I enjoyed them all for very different reasons. So let's just jump right into it. The first series that I have on my list is the Tearling series by Erica Johansson. I read all of these books this year and I absolutely loved it. This is an adult fantasy series. Well, it also defies all expectations when it comes to genre. There's dystopian elements, there's contemporary elements, there's historical elements. It's so flipping good. I gave the first book a 4.5 out of 5, the second book a 5 out of 5, and the third book a 4 out of 5 stars. Solid trilogy. I'm so glad I got to this year. Would highly recommend, especially if you like political intrigue as well as there are some like mystery elements, and it's just so good. Would recommend, loved this series. The next book that I have on here is actually part of a series that is also one of my all-time favorites, but this one really stood out to me this year, and that was Frozen Tides by Morgan Rhodes. This is the fourth book in the Fallen Kingdom series, and this book was just so good. I absolutely loved where this series is going. This is a young adult fantasy series, although I would classify it more as new adult. It's on the older side of young adult because of its mature themes. It's multiple perspective in a very big, expansive world. People describe this as Game of Thrones for young adults, and I think that's pretty accurate. I wouldn't go into it thinking exactly Game of Thrones, but the feel of the world and the multiple perspectives and the political like maneuvering and subtle magic is definitely up George R. R. Martin's alley. I am so excited. The final installment for this is coming out in 2018 and I'm ready to read it. Next up, I have a book of poetry, which is The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur. I'm so excited that Rupi Kaur came out with a second book. Milk and Honey was one of my favorite books that I read last year. This is definitely my favorite poetry I read this year, although I have been expanding my collection, and I think I'm going to show you guys what my poetry collection is because it is a new passion of mine. Rupi Kaur just knocks it out of the park again with this one. She is very good and I love her style and I enjoyed this very much. Next up we have Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Dark Artifices series, which is a spin-off from the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices series. It's all a part of the Shadowhunters world by Cassandra Clare. Obviously, I can't tell you what the plot is of this book, being the, 13th novel in this epic series, but the Dark Artifices is definitely my favorite of Cassandra Clare's works. I did not enjoy the Mortal Instruments as much. I thought it was average. I enjoyed Infernal Devices. Dark Artifices just has that certain something that I just adore, and I absolutely loved Lord of Shadows. Queen of Air and Darkness is going to kill me. This book wrecked me. Queen of Air and Darkness is going to kill me. Next up, I have two Leigh Bardugo books. I finally got around to reading Crooked Kingdom, and I vlogged it. If you guys are interested, there's tears and emotions that are happening during that vlog for my 24-hour readathon. I'll link it down below. Freaking loved this. It took me so long to get to this sequel and I don't know why. I was so ready to read this and I just put it off and put it off and put it off, and it was just as good as everybody is saying. I adored Six of Crows. I loved Crooked Kingdom even more. I cannot wait for more in this world. This is the second book in the Six of Crows duology, which is a fantasy heist that takes place in the same world as the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, and it's so good. It's so good. Guys, read Leigh Bardugo's books. If you don't want to read the Grisha trilogy, read these, but read them all. She's fabulous. I love her. I've gotten to meet her twice and I love her so much. Then we have the Language of Thorns, Midnight Tales and Dangerous Magic by Leigh Bardugo. I went to the release event and vlogged this. If you're interested, this is short story fairy tales that take place in the Grishaverse as well, and absolutely fantastic. These fairy tales take traditional fairy tales from across the world and spin it on its head and add just like this element of darkness and beauty, and Lee just does such a fantastic job in this book. I would highly recommend. And you don't even need to read all of her books before you read this one. It's just a fun set of fairy tales and short stories that I think anybody can enjoy. Next up is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. I read this via audiobook, so I do not have a physical copy to show you guys, but this book is absolutely fantastic. It is inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and follows a female character who is a witness to a police brutality incident of her best friend. This book is so culturally important, but it's also, I think, really well written. I loved the family aspects, the plot, the friendship. It was absolutely fabulous. Would highly recommend. Then I have a graphic novel series. I read the entirety of the Alex and Ada trilogy graphic novel series, and I really enjoyed this series. It takes place in a world where artificial intelligence is present and robots look like humans. I really enjoyed this series because it explores what it means to be human, and the art was beautiful. I think I gave the first volume 4 out of 5 stars, the second one 5 out of 5, and the third one 4 out of 5, and it's just a very nice arc. It is a 3-volume series, and I would highly recommend. One of my favorite graphic novel series ever. Then we have The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. This is another book that kind of defies all genre expectations. There's dystopian elements, fantasy elements, sci-fi elements. So good. This is the second book in the, I don't know what this series is called, Bone Season series. It's gonna be 7 books or 6 books. So excited. This one just blew my mind. I don't know why I put it off for so long. This book series is really good. I would highly recommend it. And lastly, for my favorite books of 2017, I added Red Rising to the list. I read this in December for the Holiday Adventure-a-thon, and I'm so glad that I did. This is an adult sci-fi trilogy, the first book in the trilogy that takes place where humans now live on Mars and society is split into colors, and red is the lowest color in society. They are basically servants and slaves, and our main character is a red that gets roped into a rebellion. I know this series gets a lot of hype, but I think the hype is deserved because I really enjoyed myself while reading this novel. So that is it for my favorite books of 2017. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!